All right, Jabosei, it is a tremendous chus, Baruch Hashem. A number of years ago, many years ago, we actually had a Tanya shir. This is probably going back about 15 years ago. We did different selected pieces of Tanya, but the truth is we never really took the shir from the beginning till the end. So what I'd like to be able to do, Emir Hashem, over the course of our coming weeks or years, pretty much at our pace that we go, Emir Hashem, is to really go through this incredible Sefer. So just a little bit, just by way of Hakdama. Sefer Tanya was written by the Alter Rebbe of Shner Zeman of Liadi, who lived from 1745 to 1812. The Rebbe himself was not originally of a Hasidic band. He becomes the Talmud of the Magid of Mezrich, or Dov Ber of Mezrich, who was himself the Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov. We're going to get a lot more into some of the into the Balatanyas. So Rosh Hashanah Zalman Liadi, known as the Balatanya, also known again in Lubavitch circles as the Alter Rebbe. First Rebbe of Lubavitch. Also, before even he wrote Tanya, his first work was the Shulchan Aruch Harav, which was really quite an amazing thing. The Magid actually asked the Alter Rebbe to go ahead and essentially kind of review the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch had not been touched for 200 years beforehand, and the Alter Rebbe was the one who came along and really, not redacted, but again, added in different ideas. When we finish Tanya, we'll do Shulchan Aruch Harav, Emir Hashem. So I'll be coming into my walker, but Emir Hashem, we'll get to it. But the Rebbe essentially wrote Tanya to be a consolidated book of Jewish thought, that everything you need, like in theology, in Yiddishkeit, should be found in one address. So it's a compilation of many different streams of thoughts, many different hashkafas, many different ideas that kind of coalesce in one sefer. The first Sefer Tanya was published in 1796. But the Rebbe really worked on this Sefer for a good 20 years beforehand. So already 20 years to produce this work that we are learning first comes out in 1796. Although, as we're going to see, interestingly enough, there were different parts of Tanya that were like, I guess for lack of a better term, leaked, a little bit before. Like the Rebbe put out to the Hasidim just different things that were coming up. So what we're starting with tonight, I often say this whenever we start a new Sefer, that often, the Yetzer Hara, whenever you learn, and it's true like in a book, is that you always skip the introduction. Like, come on, I don't need the introduction. Let's just get to the meat and potatoes. But the truth is, as we get older, we recognize that introductions are incredibly important. Incredibly important, and that halacha l'maisa, plenty of shis will say, and that halacha l'maisa so often you could see like the machshavas, the thoughts and the intentions, the goals of the author when you analyze the introduction. So it's interesting because Sefer Tanya actually technically has two introductions. So tonight we're going to start from the part over here that's called Sefer Shel Benyonim. So again, you can see Tanya. The name of the Sefer was not called Tanya. The Alter Rebbe did not intend it for it to be called Tanya. He ultimately intended it for it to be called Likutei Amarim, which literally means a collection of sayings. We'll see why it becomes known as Tanya later on. And again, the other name that the Rebbe had for it was Sefer Benyonim, which literally means the book of the people of the middle of the road, right? In-betweeners, which doesn't really seem to be like a high-achieving title, right? Again, this is the Sefer Benyonim, right? This is the Sefer kind of like for the average guy. So we'll see why the Rebbe really used that title. So the edition that we're going to be used is actually an edition that I came across a number of years ago, which is Chasidus Mevu'eres. We actually used something similar for Tzidkas HaTzadik as well. So again, what the author did over here is kind of took the pieces of Tanya, broke them out a little bit and explains each piece. So if you're looking on the sheet that I gave you, just to show you around like how this works, when you see the bolded line like this, that bolded line, that's Tanya. Those are the Alter Rebbe's actual words. What you see in the smaller print below it, that's explanation. So we're going to learn it from this part below. So you can see, right, we're going to learn it from this part below, and so we're kind of going to build in just the explanations as we go through. So let's begin. So the first bold line there, Sefer Likutei Amarim. Okay, so this was the intended title that the Rebbe had. This is a book, a collection of sayings. A Sefer Nikra B'Shem Likutei Amarim. So again, Tanya is known, the Alter Rebbe intended it to be known as a book of collections of sayings. So he says over something amazing. Likutei, berov an v'sanuso kara b'no l'sifro b'shem Likutei Amarim. Lahoros, she'ein bidvarav mishum chidush ela likut midevrei kodmav. So the first thing that the Alter Rebbe wanted to do, and this is really incredible, is this book was written with a profound sense of humility. The Rebbe calls it Likutei Amarim, collection of sayings. By definition, what does collection of sayings tell you? What does that tell you? What does that tell you? There's a lot of sayings, right? Whose sayings? Whose sayings? Right? Bipashtos, we would assume other people's sayings. Right? That's the assumption. The Alter Rebbe wrote this with a profound sense of humility, that he wanted the reader to know, this is not my information. Now, it's not totally true. There's a lot of the Rebbe's own information and insights, but the point that the Rebbe was trying to make over here is that the information that is contained in this incredible and holy Sefer is a collection of other streams of pre-existing thoughts. You see this, by the way, this is very reminiscent of the introduction of the Ramchal, Ramosh Chaim Lasadu to Mesilas Yesharim. Right? What does the Ramchal write? The Ramchal says, by the way, you're not going to find anything new in this Sefer. There's nothing new in here. Anything that I'm telling you in here has already been said before. I'm just going to take already pre-existing ideas and expound upon them a little bit more. So that's why he calls this is important. So remember, the intended title was Likutei Amarim, collection of sayings. Why does the Alter Rebbe call it a collection of sayings? This was a tremendous display of humility. It's not my Torah, it's not my information, I am simply a malaket. Malaket means one who gathers things from other sources and brings them together. Amarim. Now he says ultimately, again, it's called Amar. Amarim are sayings. Ki ha-sefer kulo, hi tshuvos al yechidus she'elos. Kolomar, shetochan ha-sefer hu dvarim sherabeinu heshev l'she'elos, page hey, shel ha-chasidim kishnichus alav liyechidus, v'zeu amarim. This is also very interesting. The Rebbe says, the information contained in the Sefer is really in response to the questions that his Hasidim posed to him over the years. You know, in Chasidus, there's the concept of a yechidus with the Rebbe, which means you go in one-on-one with the Rebbe. So during that time, you ask the Rebbe for brachas, you ask the Rebbe questions. So what the Alter Rebbe was saying over here is the information in this Sefer is really a response to the questions that I received from my Hasidim over the years. So this is very interesting. So the reason why this is important, and I also this is why, you know, if you ever wonder, why is it that Tanya is such like a widespread phenomenon? It really is. It's one of the, even outside of Hasidic circles, it's considered to be such a staple of Jewish thought. Why? Because it was in response to the questions of the everyday man. Tanya is not an ivory tower compilation of theology or philosophy. It was the Alter Rebbe hearing all of the questions and all of the things that bothered the everyday man. And the Rebbe said, let me address it. That's why you see, right, even today, there's so many, I don't want to use the word, not knockoff, what's the word, like, not knockoffs on Tanya, but like derivatives, like daily lessons in Tanya, this and that. And like, it's often not like a line in Tanya, it's like a lesson derived. How do you do that with a sefer like this? Because again, this was written for the common man. This was not written for the scholarly elite. Even though, again, there are some pretty esoteric ideas in here, but it's important to understand, right? The Rebbe wrote this because Hasidim were coming to him with questions. He hears the questions of the Hasidim, and he wants to respond. Okay, so now, you see where I am on page Hey? Page Hey, where it says, Chilik Rishon, Hanikra B'Shem Sefer Shel Benyonim. You see where I am? So remember again, that bold line, just so you get used to the style over here, that's a quote from Tanya itself. So this is one of my favorite pieces. So the first part of Tanya, first section of Tanya is called Sefer Shel Benyonim, which again, so how would we translate Benoni? I don't know, what's a good, so just so you understand, right? When I say Benoni, what do you think about? Right, Yam Noraim, right? You have Tzadikim, Rishaim, and then you have Benyonim in the middle. So Benoni kind of always like has this connotation of like, you know, like Nishtahin, Nishtaher. It's not a tzaddik, it's not a rasha. He's a Benoni, right? He's in the middle. So the Rebbe says, I don't know, but there must be a better English word. Okay.
Average?
I'm sorry, intermediate, average. But we're going to see, we use the word, right? Right. We're good. We'll come to it in a little bit. But here's what's interesting is, and the Rebbe is going to fundamentally change this for us, our notion of a Benoni, right? When we think about a Benoni, who's the Benoni? What is he? Simple guy, right? Pashut Yid. When I think about it, is like, he just hasn't gotten to where he needs to get to, right? In other words, we think about Benoni as like it's an intermediary step. He's not where he needs to be. At least, like in the tshuva model, right? There's a Rasha, a Benoni, and a Tzaddik. So who's the Benoni? He's not a Rasha, Baruch Hashem, but he's also not yet a Tzaddik. What's the avod of the Benoni? What's the avod of the Benoni? To become a Tzaddik. So Benoni is like this place where you hover, but the goal is not to stay there. The goal is to progress. Yet, interestingly enough, the Rebbe calls this Tanya the Sefer Shel Benyonim. So look what he commentary. L'chelik harishon shel Sefer L'kutei Amarim. So by the way, that's why colloquially we call this Sefer Tanya. But just understand, it's interesting that the Rebbe intended it to be called L'kutei Amarim, right? And again, it's also known as the Sefer Shel Benyonim. Sefer Shel Benyonim. So why did the Rebbe call this Sefer Shel Benyonim? So he goes on. So L'chelik harishon shel Sefer L'kutei Amarim, the first section of L'kutei Amarim, the first section of Tanya, Korei Rabbeinu b'Shem Sefer Benyonim. The Rebbe called it the Book of Benyonim. Why? This is incredible. Get ready for this line. Ki mataras hasefer hi lahoros derech ba'avodas Hashem avor Benyonim. The entire essence of this sefer is to teach the Benoni how to serve Hashem. That's it. Who is this entire sefer written for? The Benoni. That's what it's written for. Look at it. It's Perush. Chazal higdiru es mishi yesh lo mechza zechuyos or mechza avanos Shem Benoni. So remember again, here the commentary over here is quoting exactly what I mentioned before. So when Chazal speak about a Benoni, so who's the Benoni? See, he's the guy again who has half mitzvos, half averos, right? Because remember again, it's Gemara Maseches Kiddushin, right? That li'olam yira adam chatziv zakai v'chatziv chayiv. Person should always view himself as like half innocent and half guilty. He's a Benoni. Right? And what happens? What does the Gemara say? Also mitzvah achos. If he does one mitzvah, so he tilts the scales in his favor and in favor of the whole world. And if he does one avera, he tilts the scales as well. All right. So that's the Benoni. He says v'ilu adam sheish lo rov zechuyos nikra tzaddik. Right. So again, in Talmudic lingo, in Talmudic framework, if you have the exact number of mitzvos and averos, you're called the Benoni. You have more averos, you call the Rasha. You have more mitzvos, you're called the tzaddik. Achlalan, this is incredible. Achlalan yochiach Rabbeinu shehagdaros elu einon ela shem hamushal ve'ein hein mataros es hamahus ha'amitis shel madregas tzaddik u'benoni. But the Rebbe is going to show later on in Meretz Hashem that this is not really what it means. It's not really what it means. That when the Gemara is talking about over there about tzaddik and benoni in Russia, it's using the terms in a very specific way, in a very specific context, i.e. by tshuva. But outside of the realm of tshuva, the word Benoni is going to mean something fundamentally different. He goes on. Ola, listen to this, is incredible. And as we're going, the coming attractions over here, as we'll learn later on, I will say, so remember again, what we're reading right now, the smaller print, that's the commentary, that's the explanation. So as we'll see later on, when the Rebbe actually gets into the definitions of tzaddik and Benoni, Ola, get ready for this. She'ein kol adam zocha liyos tzaddik, ve'ein la'adam mishpat habechira bazeh kol kach. So we're going to get to this in chapter 14. This is actually a pretty wild statement, which is going to be very bothersome when you first read it, but we're going to obviously take the time to understand it. The Rebbe says like this: not every person is able to become a tzaddik. Not every person is able to become a tzaddik, and not every person even has the ability to become a tzaddik. Now, we'll say. Now, the truth is, before we even understand what that means, that sounds heretical. Right? What are you talking about? Like our entire hashkafa is built upon the idea that what? You can do whatever you want. And you want to be a tzaddik, you'll be a tzaddik. So we're going to see that, again, this is all due to the fact that the Rebbe has different definitions of these words than the ones that we classically use. So when it comes to being a tzaddik, the Rebbe says not every person is able to be a tzaddik, and not every person even has the free will to become a tzaddik. Lefichach, get ready for this. Ala adam lishof lahagia lamadregas benoni. Wow. So the Rebbe says, what is the aspiration of the Jew? What's the aspiration? To be a benoni. The Rebbe will say, now the truth is, on one hand, you might be thinking to yourself, I've been saying this my whole life. Right, my whole life. Right, all I need to do is be a Benoni. Now, obviously, the devil's in the details. We're going to have to see how does the Rebbe define a Benoni, right? What is a Benoni? But this is an incredible statement. That what am I aspiring to be? I'm aspiring to be a Benoni. Look at that beautiful reflection coming down. You see that? I don't know if maybe I just see it in the skylight. Look how beautiful. It's a good picture. Do you guys see that from where you're sitting? Gorgeous, yeah. Incredible. Incredible. So we'll say, so therefore the Rebbe says, when a person's his entire avoda is to strive to be a Benoni. Shemahusa, turn the page. Shemahusa Mevu'aretz, we're looking on the bottom. So we'll say, so now you can see just the way the page is structured. I'm on page Vav, right? So you can see just, because it could be a little bit confusing to get the hang of this. So just, I'm showing this to you now, a little bit on the front page. The top, this is actual Tanya, right? This is just the actual Sefer. And on the bottom, again, larger print is an excerpt from the Sefer, smaller print is commentary. So we're just going to read the bottom just straight through. Midas habenoni, hi midas kol adam, v'achareha kol adam yimshoch. As we're going to see, the Rebbe says that the midah of Benoni, of being a Benoni, which again, we don't really have a good English word for, in the middle, moderate, in betweener, can't mean average, right? Because it can't mean that the Rebbe is telling us to be average. That can't be. But this Benoni state, the Rebbe says, this is what we aspire to. This is what we aspire to. Zohi efo mataras sefer zeh lahoros derech ba'avodas Hashem. Now, obviously, I just want to point out, if you're like, well, I don't understand, what does it mean to be a Benoni? It's okay, we didn't learn it yet, right? You haven't missed anything, right? So remember again what we're doing over here, and this is what introductions do, right? Introductions often will set the table for what is to come without giving us all the real information yet. So I don't know what all of this means yet. All I do know is that halacha l'maisa, the Rebbe says, I have to strive to be a Benoni. This is my aspirational goal. Right? My whole life, our whole life, we're thinking like the goal is don't be a Benoni, don't be a Benoni, don't be the guy in the middle, right? That's fine, that's a good way station, better than being a Rasha, but you got to shoot bigger, you got to try bigger, you have to go bigger. Now it comes along the Alter Rebbe and says, no, the goal is be a Benoni. Okay, we'll see what it means. Zoe Eifo Matar Sefer Zeh, Lahoroch Derech Ba'avodas Hashem Hamat'ima L'chol Adam. Hainu habenoni umikan shmo sefer shel Benyonim. So we'll say, so therefore again, the Rebbe goes ahead. The entire essence of Sefer Tanya, like we said before, of Tanya of Likutei Amarim, is to be a spiritual guidebook for every person, for all men, and that's why the Rebbe called the first section of the Sefer Shel Benyonim. This is the Sefer of the Benoni. Who's the Benoni? The Benoni is us. The Benoni is almost everyone. Okay, so let's go on a little bit. So now the next statement that Rebbe makes is Milukatim mipi svarim u'mipi sovrim kedoshe el nishmas an eden. Once again, the Rebbe says that the words you're going to find in this Sefer are collected from other svarim, from other scribes, great people. HaSefer nilkat bein medvarim shenichtavu b'svarim u'mekolom be'chasim harishonim shekavan zavenu hi the Sefer Maharal miPrague v'Ashla HaKadosh. So also going to see, there's really two different bodies of knowledge that the Rebbe used to build this Sefer. Number one are things that were recorded earlier than him. For example, the words of the Maharal of Prague, the words of the Shel HaKadosh. We'll talk about them more as we see their specific teachings mentioned. And then there's another body of knowledge, which is more the oral tradition, the verbal tradition that he received from his Rebbeim. Who were his Rebbeim, as we mentioned before? The Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. Again, the Baal Tanya did not learn under the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. The Baal Tanya learned under Rav Dov Ber of Mezrich, the Maggid of Mezrich. But again, the Maggid himself was the Talmud Mufak, the primary disciple of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. So therefore, again, from the Alter Rebbe's perspective, the Baal Shem Tov is also his Rebbe. So it's just important to understand, the knowledge you're going to find in this Sefer really comes from two distinct sources. Written knowledge from before the Rebbe's time, the Maharal of Prague, the Shel HaKadosh, and others, other Kabbalistic sources as well. And then again, what he received verbally from his own Rebbeim, the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh and the Maggid of Mezrich. Miyusad HaPasuk, we'll say this is so beautiful. And this entire Sefer is really based on the following pasuk: Ki karov eilecha hadavar ma'od, beficha o bilvavcha la'asoso. As the beautiful pasuk in Nitzavim says, for this thing is very close to you, in your mouth and in your heart to do. Levar hetiv eichu karov ma'od. So we'll say, so what's interesting about that pasuk, what's of course interesting about that pasuk, all the Mefarshim ask it, is what is the thing? Ki karov eilecha hadavar ma'od. The thing is very close to you. What thing? What are we talking about over here? So he writes, HaPasuk meid shekarov ma'od hainu shezeh behesig yad l'chol adam la'avod es Hashem befiv belibo ubemasav. So this is very important, I will say. The way the Rebbe understands this is as follows, which is, it is important to understand that the ability to be an Oved Hashem, the ability to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is very much within reach. You know, a lot of times when we kind of think about the notion of serving Hashem, we come with the mindset that this is going to be something very difficult, that I have to learn a new skill set. I don't know what to do or how to do it, and somehow, some way I just have to learn something new. And the Rebbe comes along quoting the pasuk and says, that's not true. That's not true. Understand, a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is instinctual and natural. And I will say this is incredibly important. It is the default of man is to have a relationship with God. What ends up happening? It's kind of like righteousness, right? The default of man is to be righteous. Then we go and we mess it up. The default of man is to have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ki karov elecha hadavar ma'od. It's very close to you. It's the default. And this is incredibly important because, again, we often think I have to acquire new skills, I have to acquire new tools. It's very simple and it's very close to you and it's very much within reach. V'tzarech be'er. He says, we need a little bit to understand this. This is beautiful. Bishlam adibor u'maisem bekocho shel adam la'asos es ha'maiseh she'yaseh u'lishar ma'aseh mashal lo yasu v'chein bediburo shekol yotzei mipiv ya'al pi Torah. So listen to this. So the parish says as follows. I understand when it comes to actions and speech, I understand in those areas, I have control, right? Again, I control what I say. Right? As much as, and that's why again, Rahman al-Litzan, if a person has outbursts, there are conditions, right? The person never, but a regular healthy person is able to control anything that he says. I mean, I have control over what I say and how I say it, just like I have control over what I do, right? That's clear. I have actional control and I have verbal control. Top of page Zion. Now this is very interesting. Aval ashlita al rigshe halev ubilvavcha harehi kasha ma'od. What's difficult about saying? I could I could control how I talk. And again, remember, how I talk means the words I use and how I say them. I could control what I do, my actions. What's the most difficult thing to control? How you feel. How you feel. Now, what the Rebbe is picking up on over here is something very interesting, right? The pasuk says, "Ki karov elecha davar ma'od beficha u'bilevavcha." This whole matter is very close to you in your mouth and in your heart. So let's assume mouth refers to, my speech and my action. Okay, I got it. But to say that it's easy to control how you feel, that's not true. That's not true at all. He says, "Harikashim ma'od." What actually, in fact, one of the most difficult things in life is to control how you feel. And how do we know that it's one of the most difficult things in life to control how you feel? First of all, because we know it, because we live it. But remember again, that Ribono Shel Olam only has to prohibit something if he knows that we struggle with it. So for example, the 10th of the 10 commandments, lo sachmo, don't covet. Don't be jealous, which indicates to us what? Which indicates to us what? That we have a tendency to be jealous. Almost like that's like the reflexive reaction. It's our tendency to be jealous. Baruch Hu says, don't do that. The fact that Hashem says, don't do that indicates to me that's almost like, I don't know if you want to call it reflexive, but certainly very much innate to who and what we are. So the Rebbe says, I don't understand, how can you make it sound like Yikar Ve'elecha? It's so easy to control how you feel. Really? How can you say that control over feelings is something that is just so easy and everyone could do it? It's not true, by the way. Overcoming your feelings is almost one of the most difficult things to do. I always say, no, there's like a whole industry. The whole industry. It's called therapy, right? And it's all about trying to figure out how to overcome feelings, how to feel differently, because it's hard. Because it's really hard. And yet the Torah seems to simplify it. Don't worry about it. It's easy to feel a certain way about life. Lomar, shekarov ma'od l'chol adam, la'foch liba mitavas ha'olam hazeh li'avas Hashem be'emes. So it's almost, the Rebbe says, it's almost as if the Torah is telling us that it is easy to literally flip the switch on one's heart, to go from desiring things of this material world and to switch on an avas Hashem. So to go from loving the material to loving the spiritual. Kamosh kasa b'gemara, atu yira milsa zotrasihi, is fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu something small, something simple, v'chol shkin ava. So you hear the Rebbe's kasha, right? The Rebbe's kasha is a good one. He says, again, this is actually the Gemara's question. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, Ki karav elecha davar ma'od b'ficha b'lvavcha la'asoso. Essentially, it's easy to feel a love, a fear, a reverence to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Rebbe says, really? Really, it's so easy. It's so easy just to begin to feel a certain way. It doesn't take any other effort. What are you talking about? It can be a Herculean task. Va'alzeh. We'll just do this last line. Va'alzeh. Hishsis Rabbeinu es Sefro levar hetiv. Keitzad achin karov hadavar ma'od l'chol adam la'avodas Hashem gam b'levavo kiloshon azar b'dechilo rechimo d'bemocha v'liba b'iras Hashem b'avas Hashem shamoach alev in perut kama v'kama falavatzav. And therefore, what we're going to see the entire avoda of Sefer Tanya. The entire avoda of this is to show us how exactly to do this, how to take charge of our feelings, how to take charge of our emotions, and how to go ahead and change and channel feeling, let's say, certain ways about the material world and negative feelings, and channeling and changing that into an avas Hashem. The Rebbe says he's going to give us the strategy for how to go and accomplish. Now, so we have to stop over there for tonight. Shkoyach, Mazel Tov on starting the Sefer. Samir Hashem. I know, by the way, Stevie, we need l'chaim. All right, next week, Emir Hashem, we'll have Shkar Chavosai, tremendous haschala, and Emir Hashem. All right, at this way, we'll get to the introduction, hopefully by Rosh Hashanah. Emir Hashem. All right, Shkar everyone. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, regular shiur, just Pesach gear. Yeah.